Good morning. I hope you guys are having a great Friday and jumping in with today's topic, reaction or response. It's one of those tricky things, and quite often anything that we're particularly emotional around or have a heightened response to, and of course that can be a reaction, we're going to get super emotional about. And this creates instability within ourselves. It creates reactions. Obviously that, suddenly we're saying something that we don't want to be saying. It can create massive challenges, obviously, in relationships. Hey, Christy. Hey, Di. Lovely to have you on. It can also create massive challenges with wealth or with how you actually manage your money. It can create big challenges around health and how we're actually taking care of our physical body, because if we're reactional, generally there'll be emotional eating involved. But not only that, if we're reactional, we'll tend to take something that's actually happening in the short term and be very, very reactional to that, or very, very emotional about that particular situation, rather than seeing things as a long-term game. And this is really the difference, or the distinguishing element of are we reactional or responsive to things. Now, the more that we can actually learn how to master our emotions, and this is by actually setting up that longer term vision as well, it will actually start to help diminish the reaction and actually increase your ability to be able to respond. Now, if we break down the word responsibility, it's really your ability to be able to respond to a situation rather than react. And if we take it again from the words of Stephen Covey, when he speaks about the 4 quadrants, quadrant 1 is it's important and urgent. We are in reaction. We're putting out these bushfires. There's so much that we need to try and take care of, that we're trying to control, that we're trying to manipulate or bang into shape in an instant, so that we can get the emotional relief that we're actually looking for. Now, this is, again, it's a game around emotional mastery, because quadrant 2 is it's not urgent, but it is important. And when we can set ourselves up to live more and more from the quadrant 2 phase rather than being in quadrant 1, your nervous system is going to be so much calmer. Hey, Jerry, lovely to have you on. This makes, again, a huge difference to our health, to cortisol levels, to weight loss, to how we're actually feeling about ourselves in any particular moment. And so often when people are looking to make changes or create changes in their life, what's actually going on is that they're reacting to, oh my God, I failed, or I've fallen off. They'll make such stringent rules or have things be in such an intense way for themselves that it makes it really, really difficult for them to feel as if they're succeeding. And that's where, again, we become highly emotional. Now, if we take this into quantum physics as well, you are attracting, you're creating literally what emotion that you're actually feeling or vibing in at that particular time. So if you're highly emotional, so you're up and down with your emotions, one minute you feel great because you feel like, yes, I've succeeded in this particular area, or this has gone well for me, but the next minute you're down in the dumps, or you feel like a failure, or feel like you're not enough, or you feel like I'm never going to get there, or it's never going to work for me because of one thing. And I see this a lot in patterns, particularly I've had a lot of conversations with people around food and health, and if somebody's committed to changing their lifestyle, then they tend to be very, very reactional around that. And if they miss one thing, they see it as such a black and white thing. And I know for myself, that's where I used to live. I was certainly in the land of reaction. Everything was a bushfire moment because I wasn't clear on what it was that I needed to do that was important but not urgent. And it takes so much pressure off our nervous system when we can actually get really clear on what are those daily things that really help us to succeed in those areas of relationship, wealth, and health. They tend to obviously be the top 3. You might have some other areas, whether that's business, obviously, which can be related to wealth or finance or succeeding or financial security. But all of those different things, once you can work out what are my quadrant 2 activities, what is the things that are important but not necessarily urgent, that if I did those consistently long term, and there will be some fluctuations, sometimes you'll fall off the bandwagon, sometimes, you know, there will be things that happen where you're not getting those things done. But if you're more and more consistent with that, what you'll actually notice is your emotions will become more and more consistent as well, and you'll start to even out these emotional bumps that we can really start to recognize. Now, often when people are wanting to create a huge change very quickly in their life, hey Paul, lovely to have you on. Hey Stevie, yes, it is Stevie, sorry, I was just having trouble reading that. Hey Nicole, lovely to have you on as well. Quite often when people really want to make a big change, it's because their desire is very, very, very high, and it's generally because they're in a place of pain around it. It's like they've hit that threshold in that moment and gone, not another second, not another minute, not another day like this has to change. And that's when we can step into that black and white thinking of all or nothing. And quite often we're like, right, we're here, I want to be here. And so we take this gigantic, or we attempt to take this gigantic leap, and then wonder why we fall into the chasm, and wonder why we're overwhelmed, and wonder why we can't stick with it, and then play out this failure mentality, which only ends us back up where we actually started from. And it's kind of like the yo-yo diet, or Tony Robbins used to identify it as the pressure cooker syndrome. And I think it's really, you know, that can be one of those things as well, where it's like we become so focused, so driven, so disciplined in that moment, because it's like, right, this has to change. I'm in such a place of pain that this has to be different. But long term, if you've bitten off more than you can chew, or you're overwhelmed because you've already got so much other stuff going on, then as the pain, as the results start to shift, if that's not sustainable, if you haven't set that up in a sustainable and maintainable way, now you'll start to lose focus. Now you'll start to drop off, and you'll beat yourself up, and next minute you'll find yourself back at that same threshold again, feeling so frustrated, so angry. And what this does over time is it derails your self-belief and your self-confidence for being able to move forward or feel like you're progressing. And this is, I actually started writing a blog post the other day. I haven't finished it yet, but it will definitely jump into it and complete that, simply because this is sometimes where slower actually creates more success. Having these little bite-sized chunks that you can change, just one simple change either each day or each week, is so much more sustainable and maintainable for us, given that we've generally got a fair bit going on in our lives these days. Most of us have very full, if not busy, lives, and it can really create some huge challenges as well. Hey Katie, great to have you on, Dylan. So when we can actually really start to get clear, what is the long-term vision that I want to create for myself? What's the long-term vision with this particular goal? And we start to see it as a journey rather than this black and white, I've completed it, or I've failed. And often, again, the high emotional reaction can often be because I've got to get to this place so I can feel better. And so if we feel like we're not moving towards that place, then, you know, that's where we feel like rubbish. That's where we beat ourselves up. That's where we become highly emotional. Whereas when you can start to recognize the only reason why I want to be in that place is actually to feel better, now we can actually start to, and this is the law, or, you know, one of the games of manifestation, or one of the principles of manifestation, is you can't get to where you're wanting to go without actually feeling as if you've already felt, as if you've already got there, or how you would feel if you'd already got there, because success breeds success. So if you're already feeling wealthy, if you're already feeling stable within yourself, if you already feel stable within a relationship, or you already love and appreciate and respect your body from a health perspective, or just from the miracle of life that we actually are, then it's going to smooth out some of those emotions where you're already in a state of gratitude, you're already in a state of appreciation, or you're already in a state of love, even if your partner hasn't showed up, or, you know, you're in the process of creating a new relationship, or you're wanting to take your relationship to the next level. If you know how to master your emotions, this becomes such a smoother journey. And then you can play out the things day to day. You can get clear on what are the daily habits, because this is the difference between somebody that's succeeding or somebody that's not. It's all comes down to what you do on a daily and consistent basis. What are your Quadrant 2 activities? What's important but not necessarily urgent? It's only when we don't deal, or we haven't set up a consistent ritual around that particular life area, whether that's relationships, so regular date nights, regularly checking in with your partner, enhancing your communication, learning and growing together, all of those things. When we haven't taken care of the important, but we've just reacted to the urgent, now we're reacting even more to more and more urgent things, or more and more dramas that are playing out. And somebody that lives in Quadrant 1, I promise you will have procrastination, you'll have distraction, you will have escapism tendencies, simply because it is so stressful to live in that Quadrant 1 all of the time, guys. I lived there for a long time because I didn't know any of this stuff. So I was always in reaction. I was always running around trying to put out bushfires, as opposed to set up the daily or consistent habits and rituals that I could implement into my life that long term made such a difference, not only to my emotional stability, to my communication. And let's face it, how well do we communicate when we're in a high state of reaction, rather than being able to take it in and go, okay, what's my outcome? What's my intention around this situation? What is it that I'm wanting to create long term? Okay, great. Knowing that I value this relationship, or knowing that I value my health, or knowing that I value having financial security. What is it that I could do that could could be the best decision for me to make in this moment? And now we're actually responding, rather than going, oh my God, I can't deal with this. This is frustrating. Or, we're in a high state of emotion, and now we're wanting to get to the end result already because you're in a high state of emotional pain. So this is super, super significant in every life area. If you think about any life area that you're struggling, I can promise you will be in a reactional state around it, because again, law of attraction, we're attracting whatever we're emotionally feeling at the time. So if you're up and down and very inconsistent with your emotions in a particular area, you'll get really inconsistent results. Sometimes you'll be good, sometimes, and I don't mean to use positive and negative language around that, but sometimes it'll feel like you're on track. Sometimes you'll be like, oh my God, I can't get this. I'm so frustrated. I'm so annoyed. And you'll have this really, really bumpy emotional journey. So, the key steps around this is, number one, identify what area are you struggling in life, or are you having a challenging time in, or do you want to improve? You may not even be struggling. Hey Maria, lovely to have you on. Hey Sandra, lovely to have you on too, Dylan and Leanne. So what area is difficult for you at the moment? And perhaps it is emotional mastery, or perhaps it is relationships, or finances, or it could be your health. You could be experiencing some really big challenges with your health. And so number one, identify what is the area that you're really having a challenging time, or you want to improve. And then have a look, sit back and kind of go, yeah, how do I feel about that? Am I highly emotional? Do I feel annoyed? Do I feel frustrated? Do I feel like a failure? What story, what beliefs do I consistently tell myself about this particular area? Set up a long-term vision for this life area, guys. So when you've got a long-term vision, now you can start to implement and create changes around it. I know for me, like with my health, I have a long-term vision for my health. I'm very clear on who it is that I want to be by the time I'm 50, 60 as a grandmother. Like I'm super, super, super clear, and I'm only in my early 40s now. So I'm building such a strong foundation, such a strong pillar of health for myself by building a strong foundation of muscle to help with my bone growth and to help with my bone density and the strength of my bones. I'm setting up, and I've been working on my health for like the last 10 years anyway, but this is the next phase for for me. And so it's like, right, by the time I hit 50, I know exactly, I've got a very clear image in my mind of who I want to be, how I want to be looking, and also how I want to be feeling. So having that vitality, particularly for women as we move into those menopausal or perimenopausal years, setting up that pillar of foundation of health is absolutely critical for moving into that phase easier. Because if you're adrenally burnt out, if you're exhausted, if you're tired, then your hormones are going to have absolute, like totally wreak havoc on you. And it can be such an amazing stage of life as well. I'm yet to experience that stage of life. Hey, Paul. But setting yourself up, so having that long-term vision. Now, do I get highly emotional if I jump on the scales and, my weight's gone up or it's fluctuated a little bit during the week? No, not at all. It's just like, hey, that's feedback. It's just letting me know, okay, what do I need to tweak or what do I need to change? I don't get emotional at all. Years ago, when my whole self-image, when everything, my whole identity was wrapped up in what I looked like, oh my God, I would lose my, lose my crap. Literally, like I would be so emotional if I got on the scales and it had increased by like 200 grams, which is nothing, right? Like for women, we can fluctuate up to a kilo and a half to 2 kilos with fluid around, the menstrual cycle. So like fluctuations happen. But I used to get so emotional and I'd beat myself up and I'd get really determined, and I had these black and white rules of, oh my God, I've got to get this right. I can't, change this. I have to do this. And so then if I ate something that I felt like I shouldn't have, or I didn't exercise for that day, I would absolutely crucify myself, which left me highly emotional, which then made me want to emotionally eat. So you can see how all these factors play out. Same thing, like with money. Like if you think about money, same thing can happen. If you don't have a long-term plan, if you don't have a long-term vision, and you've put some strategies in place and you've worked on your mindset around wealth and around money, then again, when you spend money, if the grocery bill's slightly higher, if you've got to buy a birthday present and you haven't thought about that long-term vision of creating like a present account, or next minute it's Rego, like Rego is one of the things that it kind of drives me a little crazy when I hear people go, oh my God, and they're so stressed about registration. You've got 12 months to prepare for registration. So if you've not taken the time to get clear on, and there's no judgment around that, we've all done that at times, or all stressed about that. Hands up for me as well. Hey Mel, hey Bev, hey Donna, lovely to have you guys on. And hey Latifa, lovely to have you on as well. And if anybody's got any comments or questions, please let me know, because I'm more than happy to chat further about this or break down a particular area if that's helpful for you guys. But I know for myself, like before, I felt really structured and felt really disciplined and felt really clear on what it was that I actually needed week to week in order to put away into a yearly expense account, or what it was that I needed every week consistently for my groceries. And I do online groceries, so like I never blow my budget because I'm super clear before I've even gone to the checkout on Click and Collect. I know exactly what my account's going to be, or my bill for my groceries is going to be each week. So the more that you can do daily consistent habits around this stuff, guys, or have the longer term vision, this is where I'm heading, this is what I'm creating, this is where I'm moving forward. Wow, I've got a gap in my finances. Now you don't get so emotional if, next minute somebody's got a birthday, because like you've already accounted for that. Or if Rego's due next week, or if the electricity bill comes out, you're less emotional because you've created the daily consistent habits around that as well. Now, if we break this down into relationships, and obviously relationships are one of those areas that can be even more difficult to manage our emotions. We tend to be highly reactional because we like having other people's approval, or we like feeling that sense of love or appreciation or nurturing from others. And yet, if we depend or rely solely upon that, so we're trying to get our validation or our worthiness, which again is never, ever, ever in question, but sometimes we buy into the belief that other people, we've given them the power to dictate to us our worthiness, which it comes from the ego survival mind. It comes to needing to belong and fit in, which we're hardwired as babies to do, because our survival and our very security depends on it as a young child. But the more that we step into adulthood, guys. Like, we need to take responsibility, so our ability to be able to respond to situations and come back to loving ourselves. Self-love is the pillar, is the foundation to create less reaction and the ability to be able to truly respond and not take things as personally. I used to be hyper sensitive. I have a very sensitive nature. I'm very sensitive to people's emotions. It's why I do what I do as working as an intuitive life coach. But in saying that, I used to, anything that somebody would say to me, even if it was delivered in a beautiful way, would pierce my heart, would devastate me so much. And I know at times, because self-love is not a one-time certificate. Like, once you really appreciate yourself, or you've found that self-worth and that self-value, it's not a one-time certificate. It's a continual progress. It's a continual loving self. It's a continuing building resilience, building that mindset, building all of those foundations for yourself and solidifying those foundations. Because sometimes I miss my goals. Sometimes I don't show up for myself. Sometimes I do give myself a hard time. I fall back into old patterns. And so it's really about, like, coming back to what's my long-term vision for how I want to feel about myself, for loving myself, for my relationships. What's my long-term outcomes that I'm wishing to create? And for me, one of my most important ones, well, two of my most important ones, was number one, being the mum that I truly wanted to be, and number two, being a wonderful, inspiring, loving, supportive partner, and therefore attracting that in other. And so, hey Rick, great to have you on. Hey Laurie, lovely to have you on as well. So this is where, when you create that long-term vision for yourself and then start to progress or start to work towards that, now we can start to be less reactional and more responsive. And one of the best questions I ever asked myself was, how would love respond? You may have heard that before. It changed the way that I parented, because in that moment I was so used to, and I was so angry at myself because I didn't have a lot of self-love at one point in my life. And so I would take anything that anybody said to me, or even if the kids had a hard day at school, I would blame myself. I felt responsible for how they felt, and without even, like, it was all very unconscious. I wasn't even aware of it, and therefore would launch into this, like, reaction of, how dare you speak to me like that, or how dare you blah blah blah, and I'd feel unappreciated, I'd feel unloved, and I would want to change other people. And guys, this is what trips us up the most in relationships, is wanting somebody else to feel different so that you can feel okay. It is not the aim of the game. Every single time when we can take that responsibility and be able to bring back that self-responsibility, number one, how am I attracting this in my life? What's going on internally? Who am I believing? And I had, even this play out, I was beating myself up a little bit. I had a bit of a shame trigger happen for me on over the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, and was in a little bit of a funk, and therefore started attracting a little bit of negativity around me. And it was really, really interesting. The second I changed that, the second I did the inner work, started loving and appreciating myself, respecting myself more, I got instant feedback. I had a friend, a very good friend of mine that I haven't actually, we've both been kind of, our lives have been very full and we haven't connected recently. She sent me a message, oh my God, just wanted to let you know I was thinking of you. I wanted to let you know how amazing you are. Like, I got instant feedback, and this is what happens, guys. The more that you can start to respond, take that responsibility for what's showing up in your relationships, do the inner work for yourself, love and be kind and caring to yourself, and therefore have that compassion with others. Now you start to take the reaction out of it, and you can start to get curious instead of reactional. And again, it's the Quadrant Two activities, like I spoke about in the other areas. When we're having the date nights, or we're taking time to connect with people that we love and appreciate in our lives, or let them know that they're appreciated, now because you're in the emotion of appreciation, you'll also attract more appreciation in your life. If you're feeling angry, if you're feeling empty, if you feel like you're always the giver, that's also, you need to clear those boundaries, create some clear boundaries, create healthy boundaries for yourself. Start to take better care of yourself. pour in the self-love, it makes such a difference. And that becomes a quadrant 2 activity as well, rather than the quadrant 1 activity of suddenly being faced with partner saying, I'm not happy in this relationship, or relationship breakdowns or miscommunication happening simply because of not being able to communicate effectively, because we're so in a highly reactive state, and we're so hurt, or we're so angry, or we're so upset that we can't actually take the time to truly listen what's going on for somebody else. And we assume so much, we fill in the blanks, and we distort and we delete information based upon what filters of what beliefs that we're actually believing to be true in that moment. And so much of that is passed on from, or is brought to the reality of today by past events, by past triggers, by past things. People always let me down. This always happens to me. I'm always alone. This is not... life is not fair, life is a fight, life is a struggle. All of those beliefs are like wearing a set of glasses, and you will not be able to see how people are supporting you, how people love you, how people appreciate you, whilst we've got those filters on. So it's up to us to actually do the inner work, to actually clear those things, to be able to be more responsive in relationship with others. If somebody's having a bad day, somebody's seeming like they're a little bit negative, we can come with love, kindness, and compassion, because you've taken the time and energy to fill your own bucket. Rant over. I truly hope that that's been helpful for you guys. As many of you know, hey Jen, lovely to have you on. Hey Mark, lovely to have you on. As many of you know, I am an intuitive life coach. If you are struggling in any of these areas, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have a chat, see where you're currently at, what's going on for you, what is the longer term vision. And quite often when we're so stressed, or we're living day to day, we're in that highly reactional phase, we actually haven't taken the time to get clear on the longer term vision. And without clarity, you're not going to know what are the quadrant 2 activities, what are the daily consistent habits, or the daily rituals, or the weekly rituals that you need to be implementing in that particular life area to feel less emotional, to smooth out the bumps. And remember, every single day that you're living is a mini version of your life. So if you're finding that you're angry or upset or depressed or anxious or just a worrier, or any of those things are playing out for you, please take the time to reach out, simply because you don't have to be living that way. I know my whole entire life changed when I started to get clear on the longer term vision, when I started to implement the daily consistent rituals that really have shaped and changed my life in such a huge foundation. And sometimes the changes, I love to use this analogy, sometimes we can think a 1% change is not significant enough to make a difference, therefore we don't bother with it. It's like, it's not big enough. And that's what happens when we're in that reactional phase, where we feel like we've got to jump so far. We can feel like, no, I've got to be doing more than that. But I promise you, 1% change, 1% daily is so easy to implement, and so kind of like, it's a easy bite to swallow, right? Over 12 months, that is 365% change. That is massive, monumental growth. So if you think 1% is not enough, you compound that by changing a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, just tiny incremental movements. If you even take a compass and you're 1 degree off, where you're going to, where you wanted to end up, and you're 1 degree off every single day, where are you going to end up 12 months from now? That's like way, way, way off from where you actually intended to go. So get clear on your long-term vision. Reach out to me if this resonates for you and you'd like to have a chat either about your health, relationships, or money. I've done a lot of mindset work on all of those areas, but the same principles apply. And I had a beautiful new client start with me. We'd actually worked together in the past in a different capacity, but she started with me the other day, and she was just blown away. And she tried lots of different things. She'd done a lot in personal development, and she could see that things could change short term, but they felt like they always went back to what they were. And so she was really struggling with this belief that things can't change for me. And after one session, she was just absolutely gobsmacked of how her day rolled out for her. She found another $10,000 income in cash flow that she hadn't seen before, or hadn't actually acknowledged before. So this is how we delete and distort information based upon our feelings. If we're in lack, fear, and scarcity at the time, or we're highly emotional, this is actually how information gets distorted. Even another one of my beautiful clients, when we were up on the and running a retreat one time, and she had just witnessed a very distressing event, and we were looking out at the beach, and she just witnessed a really distressing event. I hadn't seen the event at all, yet when I walked out, I looked on the balcony, I could see this big happy smiley face that somebody had drawn in the sand, and for her, she had seen it. She acknowledged that she'd seen it, but she actually hadn't taken it in. She hadn't actually seen it or been present with it, if that makes sense. And so this is so true of these filters that can really appear for us. And so the more that we can kind of play with these things, shift and change our inner beliefs, I promise you life will continue to get easier and easier, more and more fun, more and more joy, and more success in whatever life area it is that you're wanting to move forward or progress in. So have an amazing day, guys. So much love and gratitude for you all for tuning in. If this has been valuable for you, please like, love, and share it with somebody that you love or somebody that could really serve. I truly appreciate and have so much gratitude for you all. Good morning, beautiful Marguerite. Can't wait to see you this morning. And thank you so much, Rahul. That's just such a gorgeous comment. I truly appreciate that as well. And tune into 2AAA FM, where my gorgeous friend Marguerite will be, if you're in the local Riverina region, she'll be running the program this morning, as she does pretty much every Friday morning. She just plays some amazing music, and she's such a gorgeous soul. So have an amazing day, guys, and like I said, so much love and gratitude for you all. And if this resonates for you, please reach out to me, send me a PM. We can have a chat, see where you're currently at, and if and how I might be able to help you. Lots of love. Bye.